The engine of the Volvo was still warm when Evan Morales, Tyler Brooks, and Caleb Duncan vanished from Cape Coral, Florida, the sprawling waterfront city with over 150,000 residents. On July 14, 2007, a thick layer of humid heat and the salty mud smell descended over Matlacha Pass, enveloping the entire marshland in an indescribable sense of unease. At 7:48 p.m., the attendant on shift at the Pine Island Road gas station waved as he watched three young men walk across the fuel pump area, holding cold water bottles they had just borrowed to cool the hood. Evan was returning the clear plastic bottle, a small item the station had used for over a decade. The older attendant followed their figures heading toward the Matlacha Bridge, the red taillights of the Volvo, the last streak of light, before being swallowed by the damp darkness of the mangrove area. And what happened in the next 14 minutes would haunt Southwest Florida for over a decade. Some names and details in this story have been changed to ensure anonymity and privacy. Not all photos are from the actual scene. In the summer of 2007, Cape Coral stood as a typical Southwest Florida coastal city, where major roads like Pine Island Road and Del Prado Boulevard connected a sprawling network of residential areas extending to saltwater marshes and canals leading out to Matlacha Pass. This wide body of water, separating Cape Coral from Pine Island, was known for its dense mangrove forests, narrow bridges, and one-way road sections, creating a semi-isolated terrain that easily concealed vehicle movements when venturing deeper into smaller branches. The three local young men, Evan Morales, 22, interning at a small garage on Del Prado, Tyler Brooks, 21, working seasonally at a dock, and Caleb Duncan, 20, a sophomore at Florida Gulf Coast University, maintained the habit of meeting up on weekends to fish or drive around the marsh side roads. On July 14, 2007, all three left home in the afternoon with a simple plan: stop at the gas station on Pine Island Road, grab some drinks, then drive along Matlacha to check the tide before dark. They were using Evan's midnight blue Volvo, an older car, but one the group was very familiar with. Around 7:48 p.m., the gas station's security camera captured the Volvo pulling into the fueling area. In the footage, the three young men stood by the car exchanging brief words before Tyler stepped into the store. Caleb checked his phone, and Evan spoke with a stranger approaching from the rear area of the station. This man appeared quite clearly in the frame: tall build, slow gait, wearing a light-colored baseball cap, with no notable behavior beyond pausing when Evan turned to look. The camera recorded only a few seconds of vague interaction, after which the Volvo left the station, heading toward Matlacha Pass. From this point onward, there were no further records of their journey. Around 10 p.m., families began trying to contact them but received no answers. Calls continued until nearly 11 p.m., and sent messages went unread. This silence, completely contrary to their usual routine, caused growing concern among the families, especially since Evan, Tyler, and Caleb all have the habit of checking in when returning late. By around 11:50 p.m., after checking their usual hangouts without any sign, the families of the three decided to contact the Lee County Sheriff's Office to report them missing. The Lee County Sheriff's Office received the missing persons report late on the night of July 14 and immediately opened a case file following protocol for multiple adults disappearing within the same time frame. Intake was handled at the duty desk, where the on-duty officer recorded complete initial information from each family: the time the three left home, the plan discussed that day, their regular activities, and when relatives first sensed something unusual. All information was standardized into timelines to facilitate comparison and eliminate discrepancies due to memory or differences in statements. According to the families, the three young men left home in the late afternoon with a simple plan. They often followed on weekends: stop at the gas station on Pine Island Road, then drive to the Matlacha area to view the tide. This was a route they had used many times, so average travel time and familiar stops could be estimated fairly accurately. Upon recording these statements, police immediately cross-referenced them with the gas station camera footage, the only objective evidence capturing their confirmed presence on July 14. The images showed the midnight blue Volvo stopping at the gas station at 7:48 p.m., with all three young men visible in the frame area. After a short period, the vehicle left the station heading west toward Matlacha Pass. This became the last confirmed visual timestamp. To standardize the timeline, police continued cross-checking communication data provided by families, unanswered calls, unread messages, and the times of each contact attempt. The communication chain showed that from around 9 p.m. onward, none of the three responded, and their failure to answer phones for hours was highly unusual compared to daily habits. The period from 7:50 p.m., based on camera, to around 9:10 p.m., based on the first unanswered call, formed a data gap lasting over an hour that could encompass the entire sequence of events leading to their disappearance. This was considered the most critical window for identifying possibilities related to movement, stopping, or contact with others. After establishing an accurate timeline, police began determining a reasonable initial search radius. Based on the gas station location, average travel speed, and the departure direction recorded by camera, on-duty personnel delineated an area with a 5 to 10 mile radius westward and northwestward, encompassing the full length of Pine Island Road extending to the Matlacha Bridge, side branches into marsh-side residential areas, and open lots near Matlacha Pass. The unique characteristics of the area: many dead-end roads, sparse residences, one-way sections along the water, made the 5 to 10 mile range suitable to ensure no potential vehicle trace locations were overlooked. During range establishment, police also considered evening timing, rapidly fading light after sunset, and low traffic density, which narrowed traffic-related possibilities, but opened others related to sudden direction changes or turns onto unmonitored side paths. Standardizing the timeline and movement range was not intended to speculate on the cause of disappearance, but solely to build a solid, objective data foundation so subsequent steps would not overlap or fall into bias from initial assumptions. Standardizing the timeline during case intake allowed the responsible team to quickly move to collecting visual data, the primary foundation for determining the Volvo's and the three young men's initial direction of travel. Within hours of opening the file, Lee County Sheriff's Office began contacting businesses, gas stations, convenience stores, and restaurants along Pine Island Road and intersections leading to Matlacha Isles to obtain all available security video that might have captured the vehicle between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m. On July 14, some locations still used low-resolution recording systems, but thanks to cameras angled toward the roadway, police were able to extract several short clips showing vehicle movements during the target window. All data was transferred to the Center for Synchronized Analysis. The focus of this analysis was locating images of the midnight blue Volvo based on identifying features, distinctive older car shape, round headlights, and dark paint color. From the 7:48 p.m. gas station footage, police confirmed the Volvo left the pump area heading west, merging into sparse traffic on Pine Island Road. In video from a convenience store about a mile from the gas station, the vehicle was captured passing by around 7:51 p.m., matching normal travel speed. This image allowed confirmation that the vehicle did not change direction immediately after leaving the station. When analyzing subsequent frames from farther cameras, police reconstructed a relatively stable movement axis. The Volvo continued straight toward Matlacha with no evidence of turning into side alleys in the first 1 to 2 miles. This eliminated hypotheses of the vehicle turning around or abruptly changing direction near the gas station. Among the captured cameras, one clip from a seafood shop on the road leading to the Matlacha Bridge recorded a blurry image of 3 consecutive vehicles moving. The second in the sequence matched the size and shape of the Volvo, appearing around 7:55 p.m. This timing aligned with the distance between the camera location and the gas station, reinforcing the continuous movement chain police were building. Although the image was not clear enough to identify the license plate, the overall features were sufficient to consider it supporting evidence for the vehicle's westward journey. In parallel with tracing the vehicle's movement, police also reviewed frames to determine whether the stranger appearing in the gas station video was captured by any other camera. No camera clearly recorded this individual after the station appearance, suggesting he may not have left via the main road or was only present briefly before departing the recorded area. Nevertheless, his presence was logged in the file as an element of the final timeline sequence. When compiling all video data, police created a linear movement map marking the Volvo's appearance points in chronological order. The map showed a straight path along Pine Island Road toward the Matlacha Bridge, with no unusual turns or stops within camera visible range. Based on this image sequence, police determined the last point the vehicle was captured on camera was near the Cape Coral Side Bridge approach, around 7,056 to 757 p7. From this point onward, no further cameras recorded the vehicle, making the road section from the bridge to residential and marside areas a visual blind spot and the only potential continuing direction identifiable from collected data. Reconstructing the Volvo's direction of travel through the camera system helped police identify the final road segment where the vehicle appeared in video, but to narrow the spatial area where the 3 young men may have stopped or encountered an incident, cell phone signal data became the next critical tool. Early on the morning of July 15, the Lee County Sheriff's Office sent urgent requests to the carriers used by the three young men to obtain device activity logs for July 14, including connection times to cell towers, interruption times, and signal strength levels at final positions. Once data arrived, police analyzed each device individually, then cross-referenced for intersection points. Initial results showed all three phones had similar activity patterns throughout the afternoon, stable signals in the Cape Coral area, moving westward along the Pine Island Road route. However, the most important data point appeared at 8:02 p.m., when all three phones simultaneously lost signal and ceased connecting to any towers in the area. These three logs not only stopped within the same minute, but also recorded the same approximate location near the Matlacha Bridge, closely matching the time frame of the Volvo's last camera appearance. The simultaneous disconnection of all three devices at the same location reinforced the conclusion that the subjects were still together at the final point of phone activity. To ensure accuracy, police checked positioning error margins in the coastal area, where numerous factors affect signal, including mangroves, power lines, and terrain-induced dead zones. Carriers provided error radius data ranging from 60 to 120 meters in the Matlacha Bridge area, particularly in the evening when device connection density decreases. Applying this margin to the map, the last signal point formed a not overly large circle encompassing the bridge approach road, shallow water edges below the bridge, and some narrow channels threading between mangrove gaps. Determining this error margin was significant because it helped police avoid incorrectly assuming the phones were deliberately turned off. In reality, devices could have lost power, fallen into water, or been completely shielded from coverage. Environmental conditions at Matlacha Pass, dense mangroves, low bridge, water immediately adjacent to the road made simultaneous signal loss in a confined area not unusual if devices were positioned lower than road level or outside direct tower coverage. After analysis and error margin confirmation, police officially designated the 8:02 p.m. area as the last signal point, treating it as the central coordinate for initial search planning. A circle with a radius of just over 100 meters around the final positioning location was marked, prioritizing three areas: the road surface before the Matlacha Bridge, the saltwater marsh edge beneath the bridge, and a narrow waterway running parallel to the main road. Cross-referencing with prior camera data, police noted the signal loss timing matched roughly 5 minutes after the Volvo appeared in footage near the seafood shop on the Matlacha route, meaning the vehicle most likely traveled from the camera point to the bridge area without evidence of stopping or changing direction. The camera and cell tower data thus formed a continuous logical chain. Vehicle left gas station at 7:48 p.m., appeared near bridge before 7:57 p.m., and phone ceased activity at 8:02 p.m. and phone ceased activity at 8:02 p.m. The three devices stopping signal at the same position allowed police to prioritize a focused search map instead of dispersing resources over a larger area, as in earlier stages. From this positioning data, a primary search zone was identified for the first time, serving as a crucial bridge between what cameras captured and the final mobile device data location, while forming a specific spatial foundation for underwater search deployment. With the last signal location of the three phones identified near the Matlacha Bridge, the next step in the search process was to sweep the entire roadway. The Volvo may have traveled before signal loss. On the first morning of search deployment, Lee County Sheriff's Office patrol units were divided into small teams to thoroughly check both sides of Pine Island Road, including all lanes, shoulders, the Matlacha Bridge, and residential areas scattered along the route. Each team's initial task was to look for signs the vehicle had been in an accident: sudden skid marks, disturbed soil or sand, bent or scratched guardrails, fallen plastic or metal debris on the road, or any fluid indicating engine leakage. The vehicle's average speed during the 7:50 to 8 p.m. window, based on distances between cameras capturing the Volvo, was estimated at normal residential levels, so police also considered road design factors: curves, surface, distance to water edge to assess accident likelihood. The Pine Island Road segment approaching the Matlacha Bridge is relatively straight, with unobstructed visibility and functioning streetlights, making the chance of a vehicle leaving the road without traces low. Patrol teams inspected every section of guardrail along the bridge and marsh-side road edges for collision marks. No guardrails showed deformation or paint transfer matching Volvo color. This verification was supplemented by checking road surfaces at common accident points, including intersections with side roads where a vehicle might turn and lose control. At each location, police documented photos, measured distances, and ruled out sites lacking terrain conditions for a serious accident without significant physical evidence. Additionally, search teams expanded to nearby residential areas along the main road, checking open parking lots, vacant lots, and abandoned construction sites to verify if the vehicle had stopped or been abandoned in a concealed spot. This included approaching each property, observing all areas capable of hiding a car, and asking residents whether they had seen an unfamiliar vehicle the previous evening. None of these locations yielded notable leads. No matching vehicle, no fresh tire tracks on damp ground, and no witnesses reporting unusual sounds. Furthermore, crime scene technicians examined all positions where a vehicle could have entered the water from the road, especially sections bordering the shallow water under the bridge. They noted most such areas had guardrails or natural barriers, making it unlikely for a vehicle to plunge into water without deformation or long skid marks. For unguarded sections, search teams used lights to check close to the water edge but found no churned mud, broken grass, or tire marks indicating the vehicle left the road. After completing the full roadway inspection, police concluded there was no physical evidence supporting the possibility of a simple roadway accident leading to the disappearance of the Volvo and the three young men. Ruling out a road accident significantly narrowed directions for consideration and forced the team to weigh other possibilities involving off-road areas not covered by cameras or lighting. After ruling out a roadway accident and establishing the last ping point from cell data, search focus shifted to the shallow water areas and surrounding marsh channels around Matlacha Pass Bridge. This is a complex geographic zone where water meets the road edge and thick mangrove roots render underwater visibility nearly zero. To conduct an effective search, police coordinated with the county's hydrology team and established the first sonar sweep zone, covering a radius over 100 meters around the phone signal location, extending from the Cape Coral Side Bridge footing to the narrow waterway parallel to the mangrove forest. The sonar sweep was performed using tow-behind equipment at low boat speed to ensure the highest possible bottom image clarity under limited environmental conditions. In the initial sweep, the device detected two relatively large objects within the allowable range, raising suspicion. One object had an elongated shape with sonar return suggesting metal structure. The other was smaller and near the mangrove edge, producing a noisy return image. For accurate assessment, divers were dispatched to inspect directly at the sonar coordinates. Upon reaching the first object, divers identified it as an abandoned small boat frame left for years, mostly rusted and tilted under mud layers. The second object turned out to be a cluster of trapped tree trunks on the bottom, covered by mangrove roots causing sonar to return as metal. Both were cleared from suspicion immediately after inspection. Quickly ruling out the two initial sonar contacts helped police reassess equipment, technical limits in the Matlacha Pass environment. Flow patterns here are tide-influenced, creating hourly reversing currents that can carry light objects away or shift bottom mud positions. Additionally, water turbidity is quite high due to constant sediment disturbance, leading to noisy sonar images, especially in areas with interwoven mangrove root networks. When analyzing the obtained bottom map, the sonar operators identified multiple high-noise zones prone to misinterpretation as large objects. This required resweeping water bands in parallel lines rather than single arc sweeps to reduce signal deviation angles during current changes. In supplemental sweeps, no objects appeared with size or return characteristics matching a car frame. Moreover, specialists noted that the Matlacha Pass bottom within the sweep zone consists mainly of soft mud, which can quickly cover small items but would struggle to fully conceal a large vehicle if it entered freely from the surface. Thus, the likelihood of the Volvo lying within this sonar sweep range was assessed as low. When compiling all equipment data and diver reports, police concluded there was no evidence indicating the presence of the vehicle or corresponding object in the initial priority area. This meant that if the vehicle had entered the water, it could lie outside the sweep range or in an area where sonar could not return clearly due to mangroves or complex bottom terrain. The conclusion of the first underwater search phase provided no direct evidence but played a key role in ruling out the near-bridge radius area, the zone considered highest probability based on cell ping data. With this result, the coordination team recognized the need to expand underwater search or apply different techniques, while noting no matching objects in the first sonar sweep to directly connect to the disappearance of the Volvo or the three young men. After the initial sonar sweep at Matlacha Pass yielded no results, the next search direction was expanded to docks and marinas in the area, to verify whether the three young men might have interacted with boats or inadvertently appeared at a waterfront facility around. The time phone signal ceased. This review was based on the assumption that if the Volvo did not enter the water near the bridge, the victims could have turned into a nearby waterside stop or approached a dock to meet someone, including the possibility involving the stranger seen in the gas station video. Police began by requesting vessel traffic logs from the three busiest marinas within a 10-mile radius: Matlacha Isles Marina, Bokelia Marina, and Burt Store Marina. These facilities all maintain boat logs as required, including departure times, arrival times, captain names, and vessel descriptions. Each marina's logs were cross-checked against the disappearance timeline, particularly the critical window from 7:40 p.m. to 9 p.m., established by camera and cell PM, established by camera and cell ping data. At Matlacha Isles Marina, police noted very low vessel traffic that evening of July 14. Captains present during that time frame were contacted directly to confirm whether they had encountered any group of young men or noticed an unfamiliar vehicle at the dock. No one reported seeing three young men matching the description, and no cars were parked in the pickup area during the relevant period. At Bokelia Marina, the boat log recorded two vessels departing before 8 p.m. and one arriving late, around 20 p.m. Police interviewed the captains of all three boats along with the evening shift dock attendant, but none mentioned the appearance of the three young men or the stranger. Marina staff stated that the parking lot was regularly monitored, and an older dark-colored vehicle would have been easily noticed during that window, yet internal logs showed no unusual activity. Burt Store Marina, the largest of the three, had higher activity that evening, but after reviewing vessel lists and interviewing dock personnel, police found no leads connected to the Volvo or the victims. There were no reports of unusual noises, arguments, calls for help, or unidentified vehicles near the departure zones. All information gathered from the three marinas indicated that during the period of the victim's disappearance, there was no interaction between boats and a group of three young men, and no evidence suggested they boarded a vessel or were picked up by anyone else. Police also considered the possibility that the group approached an informal dock or unofficial water access point. However, such locations were mostly residential, with low evening traffic. No witnesses in those areas reported seeing the group of three or the Volvo. Additionally, based on distances from the last signal location to the marinas, police assessed that to reach any of them within the relevant time frame, the group would have had to divert very early after leaving the gas station, which contradicted camera data showing the Volvo continuing straight toward Matlacha. After compiling all vessel logs, staff interviews, and time-distance checks, police concluded there was no evidence the three young men left the area by water from the main marinas. This conclusion narrowed the possibility they accessed a boat or were transported away by sea, while eliminating a significant branch of the initial search scope. Within 48 hours of opening the missing persons file, the Lee County Sheriff's Office began receiving numerous unsolicited reports from local residents. A common occurrence once news of the three young men spread through Cape Coral and Matlacha. These reports included sightings of a dark-colored car speeding on Pine Island Road, a group of three young people supposedly standing near a waterfront, or an old vehicle parked unusually in a vacant lot. Although most tips were speculative or based on inaccurate memory, police were required to evaluate each one to ensure no critical detail was overlooked. Witness evaluation followed three main criteria: timing, location, and plausibility. Timing was the first and fastest eliminating factor. Reports claiming the three were seen before or after the 7:50 p.m. mark, when the Volvo left the gas station per camera data, were cross-checked against the timeline for possible matches. Many witnesses claimed to see the car heading east, directly contradicting the camera-recorded direction, so those reports were immediately discarded. The second criterion was location. Compared against the previously constructed movement map, one person reported seeing the three young men at Fort Myers Beach between 18 and 9 p.m. However, the distance from the Pine Island Road gas station to Fort Myers Beach exceeded feasible travel time between confirmed data points. Another report mentioned sighting the victims in Naples, which was even less plausible due to the much longer required travel time compared to the existing timeline. The third criterion was plausibility, where police compared witness descriptions to the victims' actual profiles. Some reports described a group with differing appearances, clothing unlike that in the gas station camera footage, or walking without a vehicle, which did not align with confirmed data that they left the station in the Volvo. All such reports were rated low accuracy due to discrepancies between descriptions and objective facts. To ensure nothing was missed, police directly verified more feasible reports by returning to the mentioned locations, checking nearby cameras if available, and questioning residents or workers in those areas. For example, one report described a dark vehicle parked in a vacant lot near Tropic Avenue around 19 p.m. When officers approached the site, there were no fresh tire tracks, no camera recordings, and no one confirmed the vehicle's presence. Another report mentioned a loud noise near the water around 8:30 p.m., but the reporter could not pinpoint the exact location, and no additional witnesses supported the claim. Throughout the entire verification process, no report fully satisfied all three criteria: matching timing, correct location, and consistency with established behavior or direction of travel from prior sections. This resulted in all unsolicited reports being completely excluded from viable information sources. Police noted that despite the large volume of reports, none created any logical connection to the objective timeline established by camera and cell ping data. Eliminating the witness reports did not positively narrow the search area, but helped police avoid diverting resources into vague or misleading directions. More importantly, this review reinforced the reliability of the collected objective data chain, including camera footage and phone signals, the only two sources capable of tracing the three young men's movements at their last recorded point. With all witness reports excluded and contributing no verified data, police returned to the only two objective information sources: the final camera appearance of the Volvo near the Matlacha Bridge and the three phones ceasing signals at 8:02 p.m. From these 2 points, the analysis team began simulating plausible journeys by calculating the vehicle's average speed under clear evening road conditions while considering the maximum distance the car could have traveled. In the roughly 5-minute gap between data points, based on the 30 to 35 miles per hour average speed limit on Pine Island Road, the Volvo could have covered an additional 2 to 3 miles after leaving the last camera position before signal loss. Applying this range to the map produced a travel corridor matching the time span, starting from the Matlacha Bridge and extending southwest along the marsh edge, including numerous small turns and side paths leading into sparsely populated areas. Route simulation relied not only on speed, but also on each potential movement choice the vehicle might have made, if not continuing straight along the main axis. Police evaluated each turn using 3 criteria: feasibility of nighttime travel without drawing attention, degree of connection to routes leading to deeper water, and practicality based on typical driver behavior. 4 notable turns were closely examined, 2 leading into small residential areas, 1 to a waterfront vacant lot, and 1 to a seldom-used boat ramp. After field checks and time cross-referencing, police found the 2 residential turns unsuitable. Because if the car had entered those areas, the likelihood of residents spotting it or private cameras capturing it was very high, yet no such evidence emerged. The path to the vacant lot showed terrain unfavorable for leaving the road without traces, eliminating that possibility. This left the boat ramp as the first point of interest, even though it was not part of a formal marina. Police continued journey simulation by expanding analysis to the entire water-adjacent corridor within the maximum travel radius. This included assessing possible sudden stop points if the vehicle diverted from Pine Island Road onto dirt roads or waterfront paths. Certain narrow dirt sections were closely reviewed because their structure could conceal a vehicle during nighttime movement. However, due to uneven terrain, those paths were poorly suited to the estimated travel speed in the time frame. After ruling out mismatched options, the analysis team narrowed it to 2 high-priority areas requiring advanced search. The first area was the wide-open water section south of the Matlacha Bridge, where strong currents and dense mangroves created multiple spots where a vehicle could reach the water's edge and slide in without clear traces. The second area was a parallel side road running north of Pine Island Road, leading to a small waterway emptying into Matlacha Pass, which fell outside camera coverage and remained unlit at night. Both areas aligned with timing, location, and the potential for vehicle water access without observation. Journey simulation based on objective data allowed police to define 2 highly feasible new search directions while eliminating routes inconsistent with the Volvo's maximum travel range during the plane. Critical period before complete phone signal loss. The journey simulation and narrowing to 2 key areas helped police identify additional spatial possibilities. But to understand the nature of the 3 young men's disappearance, investigators had to simultaneously examine human factors to assess potential criminal involvement. The first step in this analysis was reviewing the victims' complete bank accounts, phone and computer communication logs, and financial activity in the 2 weeks leading up to the disappearance. Transaction records for all three showed consistent everyday spending with no unusual activities such as large cash withdrawals, purchases of long-distance travel tickets, or payments suggesting plans to leave town. Extracted text messages and call logs from devices provided by families showed no signs of conflict, threats, or contact with strangers prior to the incident. Beyond personal activities, police checked employment records, school schedules, and prior commitments for each individual. Evan was interning at the garage with a stable schedule and no recorded coworker conflicts. Tyler worked shifts at the dock and was regarded as responsible. His record showed no violations or disputes with other staff. Caleb was a student with no outstanding tuition debts or administrative issues requiring him to leave town. Overall, all three had personal plans for the following week, further supporting the assessment that they had no motive to disappear voluntarily. With no evidence of internal conflict or personal pressure, police shifted focus to external influences, most prominently the stranger appearing in the gas station camera footage. The recording showed the man standing near the Volvo as the three prepared to leave the station, but no data confirmed direct contact or accompaniment. Nevertheless, his presence in the matching time and space of a key timeline point made him a point of suspicion requiring verification. The analysis team attempted to extract further identifying features from the video, but low image quality, combined with fading evening light, made facial identification, vehicle plate, or specific details difficult. No other cameras along the road captured similar images, rendering independent tracking of the man's movements impossible. This stalled the investigation direction around the stranger due to lack of objective data. Police reviewed descriptions provided by gas station staff, but given the near-dark timing and low traffic area, no one recalled specifics beyond tall build and light-colored baseball cap. No witnesses saw the man enter the store or leave the station in a determined direction, making further information gathering nearly impossible. At the same time, no vehicles besides the Volvo were clearly recorded in the frame, leaving it inconclusive whether he used a car. Overlaying these factors onto the established timeline, police noted that although the stranger's appearance coincided in time and space with the victims, there was no direct evidence linking him to the three young men's disappearance. However, in the context of no new data and no signs of voluntary departure by the victims, the stranger remained a key investigative target and the only possibility for direct contact immediately before the three vanished. The very lack of identification data, unclear movement path, and absence of additional witnesses caused this investigative avenue to temporarily stall, pending further information or new evidence that could reactivate verification efforts. With the investigation direction around the stranger temporarily stalled and no new identifying data emerging, police had to return to assessing the entire geographic space potentially containing the vehicle or traces related to the disappearance. Based on journey simulation in the review of the two priority areas, the responsible team recognized that the routes leading into the vast Everglades marshlands, located south and southwest of the Matlacha Bridge, needed to be included in the scope of consideration. This area encompasses numerous narrow dirt trails, unofficial water access points, and marsh-side approach segments where a vehicle could head in under low-visibility evening conditions. The Everglades terrain is particularly complex, interspersed with shallow water zones, mangrove forests, soft mudflats, and natural channels, creating many locations that could completely conceal a car or cause tire tracks to be erased quickly due to tides and mud movement. To evaluate the possibility of the Volvo being driven onto these trails, field teams conducted on-site surveys, noting road widths, ground stability, and the feasibility of a vehicle leaving Pine Island Road without leaving easily observable traces. Some trails had sufficiently firm surfaces, while others immediately sank into mud if a heavy vehicle entered, thus only a limited number of trails were deemed feasible for a vehicle like the Volvo. After identifying potential access paths, police launched an expanded search phase combining helicopters, drones, and hydrology teams. Helicopters were used for high-altitude sweeps to detect ground anomalies, such as disturbed soil streaks, irregular gaps in vegetation, or metallic glints underwater. However, the dense mangrove canopy made many areas impossible to observe directly. Drones were deployed at points helicopters could not reach, providing lower-angle views and the ability to fly into narrow gaps between tree canopies. Still, water surface reflections and constantly shifting light due to wind made captured images unstable. The hydrology team continued inspecting narrow channels connecting Matlacha Pass to deeper southern waters. They used small boats to navigate dark waterways where interwoven mangrove roots formed natural walls, rendering visual observation nearly impossible. The team also used depth poles to probe unusually turbid water spots, but no return suggested the presence of a large object like a car. Thick bottom mud and rapid sediment stirring from currents meant any traces could be erased in a short time. When compiling reports from helicopters, drones, and the hydrology team, police concluded that although the search coverage included most feasible access routes from the signal loss point, no area provided specific evidence of the Volvo's presence. There were no debris pieces, no oil streaks, no tire marks, or any matching physical evidence. This significantly reduced the likelihood of a natural accident in the marsh area, while the possibility of intentional vehicle disposal began to emerge as a considered hypothesis. The vast and difficult-to-access Everglades terrain allows large objects to remain hidden for extended periods, especially if a vehicle was pushed into deeper water or buried by mud. Strong currents and mangrove root systems could hold an object on the bottom without clear surface indicators. Police noted that if someone deliberately brought the vehicle into this area, conventional search methods would have low effectiveness, and the chance of obtaining direct evidence dropped sharply within just days. The absence of any movement traces in the marsh area led the investigative team to assess a high-risk level. If the incident was not an accident but involved intentional elements, the vehicle and bodies may have been deliberately disposed of, making access or recovery of evidence particularly difficult in the early stages of the investigation. After completing all expanded search steps in the marshland and reviewing all feasible routes without obtaining any physical traces, the 2007 investigation entered a data consolidation phase to reassess the entire deployed scope. What Lee County Sheriff's Office gathered after weeks was a chain of objective data, but not strongly connected enough to produce a breakthrough direction. Gas station camera footage captured the three young men and a stranger during their last seen timeframe. Along Pine Island Road, cameras confirmed the Volvo continued toward Matlacha. Cell ping data showed all three phones simultaneously ceased signals at 8:02 p.m. Near the Matlacha Bridge, sonar sweeps of the shallow water area detected no matching objects. Marinas recorded no appearance by the three young men, and no witness provided information matching the established timeline. Main investigative directions were successively ruled out. No evidence for a roadway accident, as the entire Pine Island Road and Matlacha Bridge showed no collision or skid marks. The possibility of the vehicle entering water at the last signal point was excluded within the swept sonar range. The possibility of leaving by boat or contacting vessels was eliminated due to no logs or witness confirmation, and the possibility of turning onto side roads into residential or dirt areas lacked support from cameras, traces, or stopping signs. Even the hypothesis involving the stranger in the gas station video could not progress due to no auxiliary identification data, no additional camera images, and no witnesses reporting encounters with this person at other times or locations. When layering data from the scene, cameras, phone positioning, and journey simulation, investigators determined that the period from 7:50 p.m. to 8:02 p.m. could contain the entire key sequence of events, but no visual or positioning data recorded vehicle or group movement during this window beyond the Volvo heading toward Matlacha. This left the entire investigation lacking verifiable foundations, with no physical evidence, no bodies, no vehicle, and no defined endpoint to expand search further. In the consolidated report submitted to command, police listed all implemented investigative directions and their status, concluding that none could continue developing without new data. The final 2007 report highlighted three unresolved elements: the location of the midnight blue Volvo, the location or status of the three young men, and the identity of the stranger at the gas station. These three critical points prevented case closure, but also lacked sufficient basis for further advancement. When all county-level investigative directions reached technical limits and no additional community information emerged, the case was transferred to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, as a cold case file. This transfer did not mean the investigation ended, but marked archival and appending status for review when new technology, new data, or valuable additional reports appeared. From that point, the disappearance of Evan Morales, Tyler Brooks, and Caleb Duncan officially became one of Southwest Florida's most complex cold cases, with no physical leads, no verified witnesses, and no next development direction in 2007. 11 years after the case entered cold case status, the disappearance of the three young men gradually became one of Southwest Florida's unsolved mysteries, until an unexpected natural event opened a new direction. In the summer of 2018, a major hurricane swept across Florida's coastal region, causing strong tidal disruptions in Pine Island Sound. After the storm cleared, water levels in the area dropped unusually due to altered currents and displaced sediment layers, exposing bottom sections previously completely covered by mud and mangrove roots. This change drew many local fishermen back to familiar fishing spots to take advantage of the calm post-storm waters. Among them was a longtime commercial fisherman from Matlacha, who discovered a strange metallic object lodged between two mangrove roots not far from shore. Initially, he thought it was an old boat hull fragment pushed in by currents, but the curved shape and remaining dark blue paint remnants made him suspect it was not part of a small boat or skiff. Recognizing the object might relate to a significant past incident, he reported it to the local police office, which then contacted FDLE to evaluate its potential evidentiary value. When the FDLE task force reached the scene, they noted the metal fragment corresponded in size to a car side body panel, with rust patterns suggesting prolonged submersion in water. The discovery location lay outside the 2007 sonar sweep range, a notable detail indicating the object may have moved from a deeper position due to storm-altered water flows. After securing the scene and photographing, the technical team carefully detached the metal fragment from surrounding mangrove roots and loaded it onto the boat. Transport followed evidence preservation protocol, including sealing contact points and placing the object in a protective frame to prevent further deformation during movement. The metal fragment was transported directly to the FDLE forensics lab in Fort Myers, where specialists in vine recovery and material analysis would conduct detailed evaluation. Although not yet officially confirmed, the fragment's size and shape led investigators to suspect it could be part of the midnight blue Volvo linked to the 2007 disappearance. If confirmed, this would be the first physical evidence found after 11 years since the three young men vanished. The appearance of a body panel piece after years underwater raised many new investigative possibilities, as it indicated the vehicle or its components had remained in Pine Island Sound for a long time, but went undetected in initial searches. Although unclear whether the fragment separated naturally or during some process, its significance remains substantial. It was the first tangible evidence breaking over a decade of empty data chains, proving the car could have been present in the area, though outside the 2007 sonar sweep zone. This discovery forced FDLE to reassess the entire geographic scope and hypotheses regarding where the Volvo may have sunk or been relocated over time. The metal fragment, though small, marked the first turning point since the investigation stalled, opening the possibility of locating other buried underwater evidence from the past 11 years. The metal fragment was transferred to the FDLE forensics lab on the day of discovery, marking the first time in 11 years that investigators held physical evidence directly related to the disappearance. Analysis protocol was implemented in priority order to determine whether the object truly belonged to Evan Morales' midnight blue Volvo. The first step was material structure examination, including thickness, alloy composition, and characteristic bending patterns of older Volvo models. When compared to technical data for the PB544 registered to Evan, investigators noted clear matches, steel edge curvature, weld patterns, and original paint layers aligned with manufacturer specifications. However, the most conclusive evidence came from locating a partial vine impressed on the inner edge of the body fragment. Despite rust and erosion from prolonged water submersion, enough characters remained for comparison. Using reflective light and specialized chemical enhancement methods, examiners recovered the remaining characters and compared them to Evan Morales' vehicle registration records. Results showed a complete VIN match, confirming the metal fragment belonged to the Volvo involved in the 2007 disappearance. This was the first verifiable data point in the investigation directly connecting to the victim's vehicle, thereby opening new tracing directions independent of witnesses or electronic data. After verifying the body panel fragment's origin, the examination team shifted to surface evaluation for biological traces, fibers, or materials possibly retained from contact before the car sank or was moved. Under microscopy, they detected multiple sediment layers, mostly natural marsh deposits, but several small spots on the metal surface showed structures inconsistent with environmental components. Using surface scanning techniques, examiners identified trace microsamples containing human DNA, though in very low quantities due to extended water immersion. Extracting DNA from metals submerged for over a decade was a challenging process, but those trace amounts were successfully isolated using modern cell separation techniques. DNA sequencing analysis determined the recovered sample did not belong to Evan Morales, Tyler Brooks, or Caleb Duncan. This exclusion was based on family DNA profiles stored since 2007 for identification purposes. This made the DNA sample an anomalous and potentially significant factor, as it suggested contact by a fourth individual with the vehicle before or after the three young men's disappearance. With the unidentified DNA present, the forensics lab continued checking sequence integrity to assess comparability with national databases. Though fragmented, sufficient gene segments remained for CODIS comparison, the system storing DNA profiles of arrested or convicted individuals in the United States. This represented a major advance, allowing investigators for the first time in 11 years to potentially link physical evidence to a specific person rather than relying on speculation. Before entering the sample into the system, examiners confirmed the DNA was not environmentally degraded or contaminated by rescue personnel or evidence handlers. All contamination controls follow standards, including comparison to DNA profiles of everyone involved in recovery. Once all contamination possibilities were ruled out, CODIS matching became the central goal of the examination phase. The existence of unknown DNA altered the hypothesis framework long relied upon by Lee County Sheriff's Office. Previously, they lacked data proving a third party's involvement beyond the stranger in the gas station video, and his unidentified status caused investigative deadlock. But DNA not matching the three victims or their families constituted the first physical proof indicating another individual's involvement with the vehicle. The VIN match, combined with unknown DNA, made the body fragment the most important evidence since the investigation began, compelling authorities to reopen the case at the state level for national DNA database comparison, aiming to determine whether this sample belonged to someone with prior arrests, convictions, or any previously collected DNA record. This marked the first step toward linking a specific identity to the evidence, a possibility absent throughout the prior 11 years in the Cape Coral disappearance of the three young men. When the DNA sample obtained from the body panel fragment was submitted to the CODIS system, the forensics team knew the likelihood of obtaining a match was low due to degradation after more than 11 years underwater. However, the analysis unexpectedly returned a match, a genetic sequence aligned with the DNA profile of an individual arrested in Oregon in 2015. This person was Elias Hartman, a subject with a moderate history of violence, arrested in an assault case involving a parking lot dispute, and required to provide a DNA sample under state regulations. The match between the DNA from the body panel and Hartman's profile became the first forensic result, establishing a connection between the 2007 disappearance and a specific individual, something Lee County Sheriff's Office had never achieved during the initial investigation phase. Upon receiving the CODIS results, FDL immediately requested Hartman's complete records, including previously recorded residences, legal status, interstate travel history, and any data indicating his presence in Florida. Legal records revealed Hartman was not a fixed resident of any state, but frequently moved between western and southern U.S. states, working temporary jobs primarily in construction and site repair. Notably, his records showed incomplete residency reporting between 2007 and 2008, a data gap that complicated initial tracing but became significant when cross-referenced with the disappearance timeline. FDLE further requested supplemental data from transportation agencies, rental records, credit card transaction receipts, and any information pinpointing Hartman between June and August 2007. Scattered pieces assembled into an unusual travel pattern. A gas purchase receipt along I-75 in northern Florida dated July 10, 2007. A temporary stay record at a mobile home park in Punta Gorda, about 30 miles from Cape Coral, with no clear departure date. And a report from a Fort Myers construction manager stating Hartman inquired about seasonal work in early July, but never returned. Overlaying this data on a map, the investigative team immediately noted Hartman's presence in southwest Florida, precisely around the time of the three young men's disappearance. The distance between his temporary stay in Punta Gorda and Pine Island Road was entirely feasible for short vehicle travel, making Hartman the first subject with a reasonable geographic link to the Volvo's last known position. Reviewing his personal history, FDLE noted Hartman's involvement in two prior altercations before 2015. In both, he exhibited violent behavior and tended to leave the area immediately after conflicts. Although lacking convictions for serious crimes, his constant mobility, lack of stability, and history of personal disputes placed him in a high-risk behavioral category under criminological profiling models. More importantly, No data indicated any prior connection between Hartman and the three young men or their families, meaning his DNA on the body panel could not be explained by acquaintance or ordinary contact. This was a critical factor reinforcing that the DNA match was not coincidental. The investigative team continued aligning Hartman's timeline with the disappearance event sequence. Around July 12, 2007, Hartman appeared at the Punta Gorda mobile home park. By July 19, a card receipt recorded him buying food at a convenience store in Bonita Springs. Afterward, records lost track until late August when he surfaced in Michigan. This discontinuous travel chain, combined with DNA presence on evidence, was assessed as temporally and displacement consistent with an individual who might leave the area immediately after a serious incident. Beyond movement data analysis, FDLE also examined whether Hartman had used or owned a vehicle consistent with appearing on Pine Island Road on July 14, 2007. Old vehicle records showed he registered an older pickup truck in Oregon in 2005, but did not renew it from 2007, fitting the pattern of someone frequently relocating without maintaining fixed vehicles. This did not rule out his use of a rented or borrowed vehicle while in Florida. Combining all facts, FDLE determined Hartman was the first suspect with clear legal data, DNA matching the Volvo body panel fragment, evidence of presence in the vicinity near the disappearance time, and behavioral patterns consistent with models for individuals involved in location-independent cases. For the first time in over a decade, a real name emerged in the file of the three missing young men, an individual who could be traced, compared, and interviewed under current legal frameworks, marking a pivotal turning point in restarting the investigation. After CODIS confirmed the DNA on the body panel matched Elias Hartman's profile, FDLE immediately returned to the only remaining 2007 image data source, the Pine Island Road gas station security camera footage. This was video reviewed during the initial investigation but yielded no value due to low resolution, dim lighting, and limited angles. However, with image processing technology having advanced dramatically after more than a decade, particularly AI-based enhancement algorithms, FDLE decided to reanalyze the video as a supplementary forensic step to assess whether the man in the 2007 recording could be Hartman. The first procedure involved extracting all original frames, including segments, before and after the three young men's appearance to maximize available data. Each frame was denoised, brightness adjusted, and converted for AI enhancement tool processing. Algorithms used included motion vector-based facial reconstruction models and body proportion analysis models to recover overall individual information despite unclear faces. After hours of processing, the system produced an enhanced video version where key features of the stranger became clearer, relatively superior height compared to Evan in the frame, body weight distribution, arm-to-torso length ratio, and gait outlined from blurred motion. These were high-stability parameters minimally affected by poor resolution. FDLE then compared this feature set to anthropometric data from Hartman's 2015 Oregon records, including height, arm span, shoulder width, body ratios, and minor gait distortions from a prior ankle injury documented during his arrest. Striking similarities emerged in two parameter groups, height-to-shoulder ratio and movement pattern. In the 2007 video, the stranger exhibited a slight forward-leaning posture and subtle right foot outward rotation when stepping, consistent with descriptions of habitual motion in Hartman's health records, which noted a severe sprain from Montana construction work. AI enhancement also detected similarity in facial contour shape, particularly the wide, angular, lower jaw feature considered rare in average population data. Though the video lacked traditional facial sharpness for identification, face shape ratio mapping models showed high similarity between the video contour and Hartman's 2015 images. FDLE did not consider this definitive identification evidence, but viewed it as quantitative support, strengthening the hypothesis that the stranger in the video was very likely Hartman. To reinforce the analysis, the team conducted kinematic comparison, a technique comparing body motion based on angles and step velocities. Applying this algorithm to the 2007 footage and a 2015 recording of Hartman leaving an interview room yielded high compatibility in stride cycle, shoulder tilt during motion, and slight right foot rotation. These parameters are difficult to change significantly over time and typically carry individual characteristics. In the consolidated report, specialists noted that kinematic similarity ratios far exceeded averages when compared to random population samples, significantly increasing the likelihood the two individuals in the videos were the same person. Additionally, AI recovered details of the stranger's hat style, though brand or original color remained unclear. Structural recognition models identified it as an older baseball cap with a soft brim, consistent with Hartman's clothing style in Oregon images where he frequently wore similar caps during daily activities. While not direct evidence, the clothing habit coincidence added an indirect confirmation layer. Summarizing all results from AI enhancement, FDLE concluded the stranger in the 2007 video had a very high likelihood of being Hartman, especially given simultaneous similarities across 3 independent parameter groups: body shape, movement, and accessory features like hat style. These factors, combined with Hartman's DNA match on the Volvo body panel fragment and movement data placing him near Pine Island around the disappearance time, formed a robust evidence set solidifying Hartman's position as the central suspect in the file. For the first time in the entire case, investigators could connect a specific person to both video imagery and forensic evidence, creating a logical linkage chain entirely absent from the 2007 investigation. The integration of modern imaging technology and DNA data largely eliminated randomness in the stranger's presence, providing a clearer picture of Hartman's role in the final moments before the 3 young men vanished in Cape Coral. After enhanced imagery and DNA results converged suspicion on Elias Hartman, FDLE shifted to a critical analysis direction, reconstructing the Volvo's path based on the drifted body panel fragment discovered in 2018. This was the first time since the incident that investigators possessed physical evidence capable of providing backward-tracing data on the vehicle's original submersion location. To accomplish this, FDLE collaborated with hydrologists, Florida coastal current researchers, and environmental simulation teams from the University of Miami to build comparative flow reconstruction models between 2007 and 2018. The first step was analyzing hydrodynamic maps of Pine Island Sound and connected Everglades channels. 2007 data came from USGS tide monitoring systems and flow sensors, indicating Matlacha Pass featured bidirectional tidal currents with a dominant east-to-west direction during ebb tides. In contrast, 2018 data, particularly post-major hurricane, showed significant changes: disturbed bottom sediment, expanded narrow channels from flow pressure, and several shallow areas deepened by 6 to 12 inches, allowing large or small objects from deeper zones to drift outward. Comparing the 2 years' data, the research group found the 2018 fragment discovery location aligned with a post-storm newly formed flow corridor, but intersected an older, deeper flow branch existing since 2007. This suggested the body panel fragment did not detach and remain in place, but was likely carried a considerable distance from the Volvo's initial position. To test this, FDLE commissioned digitized physical simulations based on 3 factors: fragment metal size, post-detachment weight, and average flow speeds under 2018-like conditions. The model indicated a metal piece with the captured sample's area and curvature could travel 200 to 700 meters depending on water impact angle and initial buoyancy before fully sinking into mud. This was particularly important as it enabled establishing a reverse origin cone, identifying the water zone where the fragment likely separated from the vehicle. When the simulation was run backward in time, 2018 flow directions were progressively reverted to approximate 2007 states, generating a sequence of hypothetical positions where the vehicle may have sunk. This reverse cone did not point toward Matlacha Pass as initially hypothesized in 2007, but extended south and southwest, penetrating deeper into the Everglades marsh system, an area characterized by turbid water, thick muddy bottoms, and near impossibility for traditional sonar surveying. Hydrologists noted that if the Volvo was pushed into water or drove over soft earth edges and slid into deeper zones, the body could be fully mud-covered within hours and then anchored on the bottom. Only major disturbances like severe storms would break mud structures, allowing small fragments to detach and drift with currents. This explained the fragment's emergence after 11 years despite 2007 sonar sweeps detecting no large objects in shallow waters. To increase simulation accuracy, FDLE analyzed the fragment's curvature and fracture patterns. Examiners determined the separation marks suggested outward force from the body panel, most likely occurring when the vehicle flooded and experienced uneven pressure between buoyant and submerged portions. This fracture type was inconsistent with roadway impact, but more consistent with bottom pushing forces when a vehicle fell into deep water or was forced down a channel bank. Combining fracture characteristics with hydrodynamic simulation, FDLE added new model constraints. The submersion position could not be in shallow water, but required sufficient depth for water pressure to produce the observed cracks. 2007 bottom depth data in the Everglades Fringe near Pine Island Sound identified 3 suitable depth points, 2 within the reverse cone from the fragment. With this data, analysts further calculated geomorphic factors such as mud subsidence rates, loose mud pockets, and sediment accumulation speeds. Results showed a deep area approximately 400 to 500 meters southwest of the fragment discovery site, met all 3 conditions: sufficient depth, compatible flow direction, and rapid mud coverage potential. Mapping this, FDLE recognized it as a region inaccessible to 2007 searches due to then-current sonar technical limitations. Underwater cameras could not penetrate mud layers, and divers could not enter due to excessively dense mangrove roots. From hydrodynamic data, physical analysis, and 2007 condition reconstruction, FDLE concluded the Volvo most likely did not sink at Matlacha Pass as initially assumed, but was pushed into a deep water zone on the Everglades edging area, virtually undetectable by 2007 search techniques. This was the first time investigators obtained a scientific model supporting deliberate vehicle disposal rather than a natural accident. Reconstruction, number 2, thus became one of the most important foundational pieces of evidence in the 2018 reopened investigation, leading FDLE to the possibility that the vehicle's submersion site and incident location could lie much deeper, farther, and far more complex than judged over a decade earlier. After reconstruction, number 2 simulation indicated the likelihood that the Volvo was deliberately disposed of in deep water along the Everglades Fringe. FDLE focused on expanding the investigation into Elias Hartman himself by tracing his entire travel history from 2007 to 2018. This reconstruction required piecing together scattered data sources, gas receipts, payment card records, traffic cameras, hotel and motel logs, toll booth records, temporary employment files, and residency declarations Hartman left across multiple states, since he had no fixed address and moved constantly. His 11-year timeline was full of gaps, forcing FDLE to assemble fragments into an overall movement map. The starting point was July 2007. Card receipts showed Hartman at a gas station on I-75 in northern Florida on July 10. A temporary stay record placed him in a mobile home park in Punta Gorda just before July 14th, meaning he was within easy driving range of Cape Coral at the time of the 3 young men's disappearance. But immediately after July 14, Hartman vanished completely from payment systems for about 3 weeks, an initial anomaly, FDLE noted. Individuals in transient labor typically do not disappear from financial activity that long, unless deliberately avoiding traces. Checking archive traffic camera data, FDLE found an image from the Alligator Alley Toll Plaza on July 16, showing a dark-colored pickup truck matching the shape of a vehicle Hartman once owned. The plate was unclear, but the direction was out of southwest Florida. FDLE did not treat this as proof, but as a pattern consistent with fleeing a serious incident scene. Extending to hotel data, investigators discovered a second anomaly from August to November 2007. Hartman moved continuously along the East Coast, staying only 1 night at each place and showing no attachment to temporary work schedules. This movement chain did not match employment records or resemble tourism-mirrored patterns of evading law enforcement attention. Moving into 2008-2014, records showed Hartman passing through Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, then Texas. At each location, he stayed briefly, rarely longer than 2 weeks. A recurring pattern emerged. Whenever police activity or altercations occurred in an area, Hartman typically left within 24-48 hours, even when unrelated. This fits psychological profiles of individuals involved in serious crimes who remain hyper-vigilant about identification. When FDLE cross-referenced Hartman's records with local police reports, multiple instances showed him providing inaccurate residency information or departing just before law enforcement needed to contact area residents. This indicated near systematic evasion behavior rather than coincidence. FDLE also analyzed rental payment data and noted a striking shift. Hartman avoided bank cards for extended periods after 2007, switching almost exclusively to cash unusual compared to his pre-2007 financial history. This abrupt change was assessed as awareness of financial tracking risks. Overlaying the full 2007-2018 movement data on a national map, FDLE identified 2 major blind spots: the 3-week period immediately after the disappearance and the late 2007 to early 2008 gap, both aligned with times a viable suspect might attempt evidence disposal, vehicle change, state exit, and personal route restructuring to avoid pursuit. Travel data also supported reconstruction. Number 2. Hartman had multiple opportunities to return to the Everglades area in the days following the disappearance before permanently leaving Florida. FDLE's consolidated report concluded that Hartman's 11-year movement behavior was not random but consistent with law enforcement evasion patterns, avoiding financial transactions, constant area changes, departing after attention-drawing events, no continuous work history, and no fixed residence. Combined with DNA evidence, enhanced imagery data, and hydrodynamic simulation, FDLE identified Hartman as the sole suspect whose behavior, timing, and geographic positioning aligned with the 2007 disappearance, thereby officially placing him at the center of the reopened investigation. After completing the 2007 to 2018 travel analysis and determining Elias Hartman as the only suspect with matching legal, behavioral, and geographic data for the disappearance, FDLE presented an arrest warrant to a Florida state court, accompanied by an evidence file including matching DNA, enhanced image analysis, and hydrodynamic simulation. The warrant was approved on probable cause, paving the way for coordination with Oregon State Police to execute the arrest at Hartman's temporary residence and outlying mobile home park near Bend, Oregon. The arrest occurred at dawn as Hartman left home to walk to a nearby convenience store. The tactical unit approached from 2 directions to prevent escape. Hartman appeared surprised, but did not resist. A reaction investigators noted as a significant psychological indicator. He offered no explanation, asked no reason for the arrest, and remained completely silent after Miranda rights were read. The arrest proceeded orderly, allowing FDLE and Oregon forensics to execute the accompanying search warrant. The goal was not only to seek direct evidence tied to the 2007 disappearance, but also to collect reference, physical samples, clothing, footwear, personal items for fiber, DNA, and organic trace comparison potentially linked to the Volvo or body panel fragment. During the search, investigators seized several noteworthy items: an old pair of hiking boots with uneven sole wear consistent with the gait pattern from 2015 kinematic analysis, a heavy synthetic jacket containing long fibers, and an old folding knife found in a toolbox. While none directly proved criminality, their forensic value was high for fiber, organic, and DNA comparison against samples from the body panel or resurveyed Everglades areas. Additionally, in Hartman's dresser, police found a small nylon bag containing dry gray-brown soil. Carrying soil samples is not unusual for transient laborers, but FDLE flagged it because the soil color resembled sediment recorded in certain Southwest Everglades search branches. The soil bag was sealed to determine whether it was coincidence or another link in tracing Hartman's 2007 route. Investigators also seized 2 light-colored cotton shirts with faint stains but no visible blood, along with an old backpack containing gloves, rope, and a rolled rubber mat. None carried direct inculpatory value, but all were collected per protocol since fibers, synthetics, or organics could persist even after years if kept dry. Each item was cataloged, tagged, and placed in cold storage for transport to FDLE's forensics lab in Tallahassee for deeper comparative analysis. Alongside physical evidence, Oregon police seized Hartman's phone and personal computer. Data from these devices was critical for finer travel detail, personal notes, deleted messages, or any Florida-related documents from 2007. Digital device seizure was tightly supervised under forensic imaging protocol to preserve integrity and avoid defense claims of overreach beyond the warrant scope. All storage was bit for bit, copied, before analysis. While FDLE transported evidence, a separate team requested a fresh DNA sample from Hartman to directly confirm the match with the body panel sample. Though unnecessary legally since CODIS already confirmed the match, FDLE pursued it for the strongest possible evidence ahead of potential prosecution. Hartman did not object, a fact noted but not interpreted as cooperation, since law allows court-ordered DNA collection. After completing the search, Oregon State Police reported Hartman's residence as extremely sparse with minimal possessions, consistent with the reconstructed pattern of constant mobility. No personal documents, family photos, or work notes, all aligned with a profile of someone deliberately minimizing life traces to limit traceability. Regarding seized evidence, the forensics team listed 3 footwear samples, 4 jacket and long-sleeve clothing samples, 2 folding knives, rope set, clubs, rubber mat, soil bag, and other personal items. Each was processed separately in isolation to prevent cross-contamination. The objective was to find any microscopic traces, fibers, skin cells, organics, mud, pollen, that could link Hartman to the Volvo or the 2007 Everglades environment. The Oregon arrest marked a major shift in the investigation. For the first time in 11 years, authorities had not only a clear suspect, but tangible evidence for continued analysis. Every item seized, whether old boots or a jacket, held potential to connect missing pieces in the mysterious Cape Coral disappearance. Immediately after being transported from Oregon to Florida, Elias Hartman was taken to the FDLE interview room in Tallahassee for the first interrogation session, aimed not at obtaining a full statement, but at testing instinctive reactions and control level when confronted with facts. From the moment he entered, Hartman displayed absolute silence, asking no reason for arrest and showing no reaction to surroundings, a noted sign of a suspect psychologically prepared for confrontation in advance. When investigators asked open questions about his 2007 travel, Hartman immediately issued blanket denial. "I never set foot in Florida." This was a strong denial, but directly contradicted FDLE's held facts. Investigators did not immediately counter, but continued broader questions to force repetition or expansion of the denial. When asked if he had ever passed through the Southeast U.S. before 2010, Hartman answered in the same structure, "I moved around a lot, but not to Florida." The near-verbatim repetition indicated reliance on a denial template rather than natural response. When investigators presented the first evidence, a July 10, 2007 I-75 Florida gas receipt with card details matching Hartman's 2015 records, he stared for seconds, then said, "Not mine." This was rapid denial without explanation, typical of a suspect clinging to the initial story despite emerging cracks. Investigators presented the second piece, the Punta Gorda mobile homestay record with a signature matching Hartman's pen stroke. He stayed silent longer, hands tightening slightly on the table, an unconscious muscular response, often appearing when a suspect tries to maintain defense but feels mounting factual pressure. When asked if someone might have used his identity during that period, Hartman replied, "I don't know, but I wasn't there." This marked a key shift, no longer absolute denial, but vague denial, showing awareness of irrefutable evidence. When investigators mentioned DNA found on the Volvo body panel fragment, confirmed via CODIS and direct sample from his arrest, Hartman maintained flat denial. "You're wrong. My DNA can't be there." Yet investigators noted he did not ask, "Why is my DNA there?" a common reaction from someone believing innocence. Instead, he simply rejected the evidence's validity without offering alternative explanation. This was assessed as high-level defensive response, avoiding risk of new contradictions. When directly asked, "Do you have any explanation for the DNA match?" Hartman answered briefly, "No." No argument, no questioning. No effort to challenge the forensic method. This led FDLE to record a shift to passive denial, minimizing engagement to avoid slips. During the post-July 14, 2007 travel segment, investigators asked why he vanished from financial transactions for over 3 weeks. He replied, "I like freedom." The answer was evasive and inconsistent with his documented pattern of rapid departures after police presence. When investigators listed abnormal movement points, including brief town appearances, followed by one-day exits, Hartman only said, "I don't remember." This is a common tactic to prevent consistency checks and statements. Despite many questions, Hartman showed no anger or panic. He maintained flat emotional state, using silence when necessary. This led investigators to conclude he was not attempting an innocent narrative, but minimizing speech to avoid mistakes. Ending the first session, FDLE summarized 3 main points. 1. Hartman blanket denied Florida presence despite financial, residency, and identification evidence. 2. He offered no explanation for his DNA on the body panel, the strongest legal element. 3. He provided no reasonable alternative account to counter facts. Though the first session produced no confession or major contradiction, Hartman's responses clearly showed consistent rejection tactics while reinforcing FDLE's assessment that the suspect had no innocent story to present, only the ability to delay confrontation with increasingly tight evidence. The second interrogation session occurred 2 days after Hartman remained silent on most questions in the first. This time, FDLE changed tactics. Instead of demanding explanations, they proactively presented the full chain of forensic evidence, movement facts, and Reconstruction number 2 simulation to force Hartman to face a complete picture, one difficult to deny absolutely as before. The session opened with investigators placing the DNA report on the table, CODIS match, and direct comparison sample from his arrest. Unlike before when he dismissed conclusions with short denial, Hartman stayed silent longer, eyes moving rapidly, a clear sign of rising tension. Investigators continued presenting his 2007 travel, gas receipt, Punta Gorda stay record, and Fort Myers construction manager description. As the data chain was laid sequentially, Hartman showed the first loss of facial control, slight frown, deep breath, then leaning forward with hands braced on the table, a defensive posture lacking previous flat confidence. The turning point came when investigators presented Reconstruction, number 2, reverse flow cone, body panel separation site, and identified deep Everglades water zone as likely disposal location. Hartman stared at the map and for the first time showed genuine emotional response, starting eyes, no longer evasive. Investigators let silence stretch, forcing the suspect to confront that the entire investigative picture fit except one element, his account. When silence grew heavy, investigators asked, "Elias, do you want to explain what happened on the night of July 14, 2007? Hartman exhaled sharply, then shifted tactics. Instead of continued absolute denial, he said something entirely different from session 1. "I didn't kill anyone. If something happened, it was an accident." This was the first time he acknowledged presence in the disappearance context, even indirectly. Investigators immediately recorded this as a signal of suspect wavering phase entry. They pushed further. "What accident? Where? Why was your DNA on the car?" Hartman did not answer directly. He gave a vague description. "I just met them on the road near the gas station. There was a small collision. I helped push the car down. I thought they were still alive." The vagueness and illogic in the account led investigators to conclude this was not a true version, but an attempt to craft a reduced, criminal responsibility story. Hartman spoke of a small collision, yet described pushing the car down, entirely inconsistent with any traffic accident scenario. When asked to specify the accident location, Hartman evaded, "I don't remember exactly." Investigators pressed for road description, vehicle stop point, and the 3 young men's positions at that moment. Hartman repeated, "I didn't want trouble. I just helped them." This was classic suspect behavior when realizing absolute denial was untenable but unwilling to face full consequences of truthful disclosure. FDLE noted he never inquired about the 3 young men's condition, a psychological detail common in suspects directly involved in victims' deaths. Investigators returned to the core. "Elias, where are their bodies?" This prepared question tested whether Hartman would shift to cooperation or continue scripting. Hartman immediately shut down emerging emotion, hands withdrawn, arms crossed over chest, answering, "I know nothing about bodies. You're wrong about me." From here, his voice returned to flat, cold tone like the first session, showing initial wavering retracted. Though Hartman did not disclose body location, the second session delivered 2 major values to FDLE. 1. He first acknowledged presence in the area and contact with the 3 young men, breaking blanket denial. 2. The accident and pushing the car down description showed knowledge of disposal, something an innocent person could not know. This was a crucial shift, laying groundwork for subsequent tactics to force Hartman to reveal unverified details, especially vehicle and victim body locations. The third interrogation session took place against the backdrop of FDLE holding the 3 strongest evidence prongs. Hartman's matching DNA on the body panel fragment, movement data proving his presence in Southwest Florida at the disappearance time, and wavering statements in the second session where he first admitted presence under an accident cover. To push the suspect toward cooperation, the Florida State Attorney's Office joined directly, bringing a reduced sentencing offer if Hartman provided full truth, particularly body location and disposal process description. The prosecutor clearly explained this was not immunity assurance but recognition of cooperation as a mitigating factor under law. Upon hearing the offer, Hartman did not resist, as in prior sessions. He bowed his head, clasped hands, and held long silence, a psychological sign of initial resistance crumbling. When investigators reiterated the potential highest-degree murder charges without cooperation, Hartman raised his head, expression mixing fear and exhaustion, and asked, "If I talk, what happens?" This was the first clear sign he was weighing abandonment of absolute denial. Investigators placed the Everglades map before him, along with Reconstruction number 2 documentation, the flow reverse cone, and identified deep water zone as likely Volvo disposal site. Hartman stared intently at the south and southwest area where FDLE pinpointed difficult access deep water. After seconds of silence, he pointed to the vicinity of Chokolosky Bay and said very softly, "There, the darkest water." This was the first time in 11 years a suspect provided specific coordinates tied to the case. Investigators requested a description of events. Hartman began with vague explanation. "No plan. There was an argument. I reacted. Everything happened too fast." When pressed for detail, he hesitated, saying 2 people fell down after a scuffle and the third tried to run. He admitted using rope to bind them and loading them into a pickup truck, but a critical detail, since rope was among Oregon's seized evidence. When asked why binding was necessary, Hartman said only, "I panicked. I didn't know what to do." Investigators continued guiding, asking how he transported bodies to deep water. Hartman stated, "I drove on dirt roads down to an area no one goes at night. I tied rocks to them so they wouldn't float." This description unusually matched Reconstruction number 2 geomorphology: mangroves, thick muddy bottom, water capable of long-term retention. When describing a loud metal sound as the Volvo slid down the water edge, Hartman inadvertently confirmed the fracture characteristics forensic examiners previously noted. This helped FDLE assess the statement contained verifiable elements, not pure fabrication. Regarding the Volvo, Hartman said he turned the vehicle back down a muddy slope during high tide and pushed it into water. The water pulled it away fast. I didn't look back. When asked why the body panel drifted to Pine Island Sound in 2018, he replied, "Maybe when the car hit rocks, that piece broke off." This also matched hydraulic analysis that the fragments separated due to uneven compression during sinking. The prosecutor then asked the core question, "Was anyone with you?" Hartman shook his head, "Alone. No one knew." Investigators noted the answer but still requested body location confirmation. Hartman circled an area near a waterway, about 1 mile southwest of Chokolosky Bay shore, precisely within Reconstruction number 2's reverse cone. He said, "I remember black water. I remember the mud smell. They're there." No more denial, no evasion. Hartman had officially provided a pointing statement. Though lacking deep motive or full sequence, this statement contained 3 unprecedented elements. 1. Admission of presence and direct contact with the 3 victims. 2. Detailed disposal method matching physical evidence and flow simulation. 3. Specific body location provision. FDLE concluded the 3rd session as the case turning point, the first time a statement enabled body recovery potential and reinforced the entire 11-year forensic evidence chain. After Hartman provided the body disposal location near Chokolosky Bay, FDLE immediately coordinated with the National Park Service and Collier County specialized search teams to launch a large-scale scene examination operation in the Everglades, a region of complex mangrove terrain, deep muddy bottoms, and near-zero underwater visibility. Based on Hartman's indicated coordinates and Reconstruction number 2 reverse cone, search teams defined a target zone of nearly 1 square mile, encompassing multiple small channels and a deep water pocket assessed as capable of long-term body retention. Due to terrain too hazardous for standard divers, FDLE deployed multi-frequency sonar, underwater metal detectors, and specialized divers trained for Everglades conditions, capable of working in confined spaces and zero-visibility black mud. The process began with grid-pattern sonar sweeps along channels. At deep water points, sonar returned 2 anomalous signals beneath mud layers, matching human body size buried in dense organic environment. For verification, divers used long probes to test object structure under mud. At the first location, the probe struck a hard, asymmetrical object described as neither rock nor tree trunk, indicating possible human bone. Divers marked the spot, then excavated using layered mud separation technique. In zero visibility conditions, they relied on touch and manual mud scooping to extract fragments. After nearly 4 hours, the first bone emerged, a femur segment, stained black from prolonged organic reaction in Everglades mud. The second location lay deeper, near dense mangrove roots. Sonar showed an elongated horizontal return consistent with rib cage or spine structure. During excavation, divers discovered a skull fragment with a crack running along the temporal bone, matching Hartman's initial description of a scuffle leading to hard fall. Additional loose fragments, arm bones, pelvis, and smaller segments continued to be recovered within a 20 to 30 meter radius around the second point. This indicated natural underwater decomposition over more than a decade. Based on sediment drift direction, investigators determined the third body most likely lay farther along a downstream channel branch. Sonar continued detecting metal returns under mud, a key signal since Hartman described weighting bodies with rocks and metal wire. Upon deeper approach, they found a corroded steel wire segment wrapped around heavy material. Beneath mud, they located hand and forearm bones still entangled in wire. With these consecutive findings, FDLE assessed successful recovery of all or most skeletal remains of the 3 victims. All were sealed in specialized containers and airlifted to Miami-Dade Forensics for identification analysis. At the lab, DNA was extracted from bone marrow, one of few preserved tissues after long submersion. Thanks to family DNA profiles collected since 2007, comparison proceeded rapidly. Results confirmed the 3 skeletal sets belonged to Evan Morales, Tyler Brooks, and Caleb Duncan. All matched dental records, bone characteristics, and genetic markers. This was the first time in 11 years families received irrefutable forensic confirmation of the missing person's fate. Beyond remains, FDLE recovered significant scene evidence: synthetic fabric matching jacket samples from Hartman's Oregon residence, 3 corroded steel wire segments with twisting pattern consistent with his toolbox items, a small glass fragment identified as older Volvo vehicle glass, and mud traces with mineral composition matching soil from Hartman's Oregon search. These items strongly corroborated Hartman's third session description, proving he knew scene details only possible through direct involvement in disposal. FDLE noted multiple scene elements precisely matched reconstruction, number 2, water depth, flow direction, body panel separation, and drift to Pine Island Sound potential. This validated the entire scientific argument chain that led from the 2018 metal fragment back to the vehicle's original sinking point. Recovery of remains and evidence at the exact location Hartman pointed to became the decisive turning point of the entire investigation. This was not merely statement verification, but a critical bridge between forensic evidence, flow simulation data, DNA, and the suspect's indirect confession. After 11 years, the Everglades scene finally surfaced, clearing the path for FDLE to complete the prosecution file and move the case from high suspicion to fully legally proven status. The excavation of remains and evidence collection in the Everglades allowed FDLE to enter the final investigation phase, compiling all evidence into a prosecution file for the Florida State Attorney's Office. This was critical, as after more than 11 years, every piece had to form a logical, complete, contradiction-free chain, capable of withstanding courtroom scrutiny in a first-degree murder case, the highest homicide level under Florida law. The forensic team began by systematizing DNA evidence, with the 2018 recovered body panel fragment central. DNA on the metal surface matched Elias Hartman's CODIS profile and direct arrest sample. Complete exclusion of sample contamination further strengthened its legal weight, making it the most important biological link tying the suspect to the Volvo and, by event progression, to body disposal. In parallel, 2007 camera analysis enhanced via AI served as supporting puzzle piece, clarifying body shape and movement characteristics of the man at the Pine Island Road gas station. Reprocessed imagery showed high match between physical traits, gait, and Hartman's 2015 anthropometric records, reinforcing the likelihood the video figure was the suspect. While not sole identification proof, combined with DNA, movement data, and statements, it completed proof of Hartman's presence in the final moments before the 3 young men vanished. Reconstruction. Number 2, the reverse flow model. Identifying the deep Everglades water zone as likely Volvo sinking site served as scientific corroborative evidence. Simulation results unusually matched third session statements, particularly Hartman's description of pushing the car into water, metal impact sound during slide, and darkest water area near Chokoloskee Bay. When hydrologists confirmed the statement aligned with geomorphic features, especially depth, flow direction, and muddy bottom structure, reconstruction, number 2 became a tool validating the authenticity of Hartman's indirect confession. Third session statements, though not full confession, carried substantial legal weight. Hartman admitted meeting the 3 young men, a scuffle, binding them with rope, transporting to deep water, and weighting bodies with rocks. Details he described could only be known through direct scene presence and matches with Everglades recovered evidence: corroded wire, body positions, bone decomposition pattern. Volvo glass fragment confirmed the statement was not fabricated. His high-accuracy body location pointing made the statement indispensable to the charging structure. Oregon seized evidence: boots, jacket, rope, rubber mat, soil bag held, supplementary forensic significance. Jacket fibers matched Everglade samples. Rope twisting and metal composition aligned with wire around one victim's forearm bones. Nylon bag soil mineral content matched disposal area mud. These items not only proved Hartman's connection to the disposal site, but reinforced his description of movement, body transport, and Volvo handling. With all evidence assembled, DNA, enhanced camera, reconstruction, statements, scene evidence, and skeletal recovery results, FDLE completed the charging package against Elias Hartman for 3 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of abuse of a dead human body, and 1 count of tampering with evidence. Trial opened late that year, becoming one of Southwest Florida's most watched proceedings in years. Prosecutors presented evidence in linear structure: 1. 2007 disappearance of 3 young men; 2. 11 years without physical evidence; 3. 2018 body panel discovery; 4. DNA matched to suspect. Reconstruction pointing to disposal zone. 6. Hartman's statement accurately indicating location. 7. Skeletal recovery confirming victims. 8. Scene evidence matching disposal method. Defense attempted to discredit DNA due to prolonged water submersion, but forensic experts affirmed multiple independent gene segment matches, minimizing error possibility. Defense also claimed coerced statements, but full interrogation video documented procedure, proving Miranda advisement and voluntary disclosure. When presented to the jury, the evidence structure proved so robust that reasonable doubt could not be established. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously found Elias Hartman guilty of first-degree murder on all 3 counts. At sentencing, the judge affirmed the case's gravity: 3 lives taken, deliberate body concealment, families enduring over a decade without truth, and imposed life without parole for each count, to run concurrently. After 11 years since Evan Morales, Tyler Brooks, and Caleb Duncan vanished, the case file was officially closed. FDLE updated status from cold case unresolved to closed conviction obtained, marking conclusion for one of Cape Coral's most complex and protracted modern disappearances. Thank you for following this haunting investigation journey to the end. If you want to continue joining stories of cases illuminated after years in darkness, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming episodes. See you in the next video, where we will continue exploring mysteries that seemed unsolvable but ultimately revealed through the power of truth and justice.